Hey guys, it's Variazo, back at another Cardfight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoy, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and donate to the Patreon. And let's get one started. Today we have Stoicheia, Magnolia, Set 2. I meant to do this a while ago, and then V-Series got the cards of, everything in the collection set. So all these last few deck profiles, Overlord, Prison, PBD, and this one had to be pushed back until those were done, because those, in my opinion, are far more important than these, because I could do these at any time before Set 3, and thankfully Set 3 is not finished yet. So, let's go ahead and get this one started, because this deck is kind of fun playing with. It's really nice getting off early attack combos and just going for a really good rush. So, let's go. First up, we have our starter. It can be anything, but I prefer Sylvan Horned Beast Lotte, because it is a Sylvan Horned Beast, and if you know me, I like to keep the ride line the same, which means I also like to keep most of the main deck the same if physically possible, and the only exceptions to this are PGs and, on rare occasions, triggers. So, Lotte's standard skill, when you rode upon, if you went second, you draw a card. Nothing too special about it. Really only good if you go second, and while that has never mattered to me, lately doing Set 3 testing, doing something that I kind of realized, the draw does not matter, or at least with my playstyle, that draw has never come to help me, considering what I do in Set 3 now. So, Lotte is a nice starter, and it's just really cute, and it fits the ride line, so he's our starter. If you really want to go Dream Gnawing or something else, you can, but I prefer Lotte. Next up, we have the Overtrigger, Source Dragon Deity of Blessings Blessfavor, 5k power, 50k shield, grade 0 with boost, Overtrigger. You may only have one Overtrigger in the deck. When revealed as an Overtrigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 1 million for the turn. If revealed during your drive check, activates additional effect, draw a card, choose one of your units, and it gets plus 1 crit to end of turn. All of your front row gets plus 10. If your damage zone has the same number of cards as your opponent or more, heal a card. So, there's a lot to unpack with that. First off, draw trigger. Second off, crit trigger. Third off, front trigger. Fourth off, heal trigger. And fifth off, over trigger. So guaranteedly, when you see this, someone's getting a million and you're getting some form of a technical heal out of it if it's damage checked. And then, if you drive checked it, you're getting a draw, so you're getting 2 draws off it. Someone's getting a crit, so probably the 1 million boy, unless you know they have a PG, or the attack that's going through right now. Or everyone's getting plus 10 in the front row, which actually helps out with this deck. Or you just get to heal damage and all those go off at once. So, Blessfavor. This thing is an everything bagel. It looks so cool, and I understand why its wings are rainbow colored, because you just get everything out of it. It's such a good overtrigger. One of. Nice grade 0 for an overtrigger. Trigger-wise, we run 3 front triggers in Sylvan Horned Beast Valin. You may be wondering why I don't run the front trigger with the skill. Well, one, I said the exemption to these were only PGs that get to be non-Sylvan Horned Beast, but also, for some reason, when I ran Frenzied Charis in this deck, I never drive checked my fronts. Like, quite literally, never drive checked my fronts. They would always either get damage checked or just regular drawn, and it was more damage checked than drawn. And while in this deck fronts don't matter that much, you still want to, swing for extra power, especially on the turns that you can't Persona Ride. So, I kind of need to value the front sacking over Frenzied Charis' defense, especially because this deck fixes its defensive options really easily, and the best offense is a good defense, and this deck has the best defense is a good offense, and this deck is really good at doing that. So, 3 copies of Valin, because Frenzied Charis just doesn't like me, apparently. So, yeah. And then we run 4 Sylvan Horned Beast Polatter as a draw trigger. Just a very cute squirrel, and happens to be everything I discard from my ride line. There has never been a point where I have not discarded this for my fodder of ride line somehow, so... Which is weird. Every other deck I always change my ride line fodder, yet somehow this is always the card I discard for at least one of them every game, so... Polatter just happens to always be there when I need him, or her. 4 Jackalope. Another card that I always do each game, it's either one of these two that I always discard each game, I never remember which one, but Jackalope, being the crit, you want those crits, you want the draw because, you're constantly calling rear guard, you want the crit because, forcing on Van, followed by you got like 5 extra attacks, so you want those damaging numbers, and then we have the heal trigger in Zoltardarg, which is just a heal trigger, because who doesn't want heal triggers? We run a grade 0 order, Wild Intelligence at 2 of, play it by counterblasting 1, discard top 3, choose up to 1 card the same grade as your Vanguard or lower from your drop, call it to rear. If your Vanguard is Magnolia, choose up to 2 instead of 1. So, that is inherently good, because while yes, counterblast 1 it's not actually that bad in this deck. This deck doesn't really have much of a counterblast problem, especially if you play it the way I do. But it's a way to just mill 3, get 2. You just wait till you're at Magnolia, and you get 2. Or even if you don't want to, you could technically do this at grade 1 if you have damage, because it's a counterblast 1 skill, and you're guaranteed getting a call out of it anyways. So, all around, Wild Intelligence is a nice grade 0 order because it can be used early on, or you can use it with Magnolia to plus out a board really quickly. 2 of. It also has really cool art. Now onto our grade 1s, we run 4 copies of Sylvan Horde Beast Croucotte, 6k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost, auto rear when attacks are boost, Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 2k until end of battle for each of your rear guards. Okay, that's really good. This deck does somewhat have a Soul Blast problem, but there is a Soul Charge right now which fixes it. And you know, on swing, you get the plus 2 for every one of your rear guards, so it includes itself, so that's at least an 8k plus. And if you have another rear guard, probably 10. So, and it gets a more and more, and it's always a really nice grade 1 to have for early rush attacks, and just for early boosting, because it makes bigger numbers really quickly, making it harder for them to guard in the early game, and then you can just rush them out later with Magnolia. 4 of Croucotte, because it can be useful during any point of the game, even though it has a 6k base. 4 copies of Planar Prevent Dragon are PG. Funny story, in set 3, you'll figure out the deck later, because I'll end up doing a deck profile on it, and I'll say the full reason of why I did it, but in one of the decks in set 3, during testing, I did not run PGs for a very specific reason, and it actually was working. I don't know why, but me not running PGs was actually working, and then I just decided to throw in PGs because I had extra space in the deck with cards I rarely use, so I just chose to throw in the PGs, but somehow it was working without PGs. But so, if you ever want to get rid of PGs in a deck, no, apparently it works somehow. I don't understand why, but it does. Anyways, continue Sentinel. You may have up to 4 Sentinels in the deck. Auto, when it's put on guard circle, choose one of your units that cannot be affected in battle, and if you have hand cards of 2 or less, choose a card from 2 or more, choose a hand card, discard it. So if this is in your hand and something else is in your hand, when you play this, you go down to 1 hand card, you don't have to discard for its cost, which is all around really nice because you can just do a free PG, and that is all around helpful when especially when you're calling down multiple rear guards, so you're going to get low hand cards really quickly. So in all honesty, this PG kind of works best with rush decks like Magnolia, where you can go as aggressive as you want and then you still have the ability to nullify big attacks. All around, Planar Prevent is a really nice card. I wish it was a Sylvan Horde Beast because I feel like along the lines they're going to make a card that says for every Sylvan Horde Beast of someone, and then the PG would actually be useful in that case if it was a Sylvan Horde Beast, but there currently isn't one. So Bushy, if you don't mind, make one so we can get support out of that. 4 of Planar Prevent. Next up, we have 3 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Charis, our grade 1 in the ride line, 8k base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost, auto when it's rolled upon by Sylvan Horn Beast Lattice, you may reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a grade 2 or less unit card, call it to rear, and if it isn't, goes to soul. So pretty much, if it's one of the 7 grade 3s or one of the 2 orders, so one of 9 cards basically, it's going to soul, and everything else is going to board. So, and by the way, this is a mandatory, so either you call it or it goes to soul. There's no in between. You can't just see a trigger and then say you're going to shove it to soul because it says call it. So, really nice ability to activate when you ride upon Lattice. I wish it was just ride upon anything, but it's fine. And then continuous back or rear. During the battle of the attack, it gets +5, so it's a 13k swinger, which is why he's in the main deck at 2. One's in the ride deck, 2 are in the main... one's in the ride deck, 2 are in the main deck, and... often you don't call this to back row because you have so many back row swingers like this, which is so much better, and then later cards which we'll get to, especially if you play my combo where every turn you're getting like 2 back row attacks and then you're just swinging for a lot bigger than Charis. But Charis, when you need him, you know, he's a 13k swinger plus Magnolia is an 18k swinger, or the other card that can get back row attack, he's an 18k swinger. So all around, Charis is a nice grade 1 to have just in case you can't like get your average back row attacks and you still need a decent number because maybe you're out of soul for Croucotte or Counterblast and he does it for free. So all around, 2 copies of Charis in the main deck and 1 copy of him in the right deck works out really well. Now into grade 2s, we run 3 copies of Sylvan Horn Beast Agleo, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, act rear, retire it, choose 2 of your units, and they get +5 to end of turn. So, really nice ability. It's an ability I never use because typically I use this thing for discard fodder and PG fodder. I've called it down to rear guard, but I've never actually used the sack skill because I've never needed to. But pretty much, you can kill it and get 2 units +5, making them bigger. You can make your next grade 2 bigger, which we'll get to in a hot second, which can make other units bigger. By that assumption, you know what it is. And you can just make other units bigger that won't hit already. And all around, he's a really nice grade 2 to have as a support. And even though I haven't yet to use him, Actually, I used him once, now I think about it. But even though I get to use him, he is still really useful, and he's nice to have in the deck. 3 of. Next up, we have our grade 2, which is really nice in this deck and makes the early rushes a lot better. 3 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Gyunosla, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto back or rear. When this unit attacks, counterblast 1, choose one of your other rear guards, and it gets this unit's power to end of turn. Increase its power at the time. So already it has a 10k when it swings. For it to attack from back row, the 2 cards that let this give it plus 5, which means it's swinging for 15 at the very least. So whatever it gives this to is getting plus 15. Combo with Agleo gives it plus 20. Really nice to have, just makes any rear guard swing for at least plus 15, making it a lot stronger, making it a lot harder to guard, and just kind of pumping up your whole field. And you can also just combo this by giving its boost to another Gyunosla, and then give its Gyunosla power to the other one, which means it got at least plus 30. So, you know, something gets plus 30. I've done that before, and it makes it a lot harder to guard, and you can just pump up your triggers with this, because for some reason, every time I use Charis, I see triggers. So Gyunosla is really nice, pumps up your rear guard, especially if you have a latent trigger because you refuse to get rid of it because you don't want to waste guarding power. You don't want to waste calling something over, especially when it's wasting guarding power. So Gyunosla helps pump them up and helps pump up your other rear guards so they can hit for bigger numbers and make it harder to guard. And he's one of the reasons why this deck is really hard to deal with when rushing gets going. Because once this deck starts rushing, it starts rushing, and it comes down to the battlefield of who will die first, you or them. 3 copies of Gyunosla because it's a really nice grade 2 to have. 4 copies of inherently my favorite grade 2 in this deck, solely because of the amount of rush it lets you get. Sylvan Horned Beast Damainaru, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept. Auto when it's placed on rear if your vanguard is Magnolia. Soul Blast 1, choose one of your rear guards until end of turn. It can attack from that unit, can attack from back row, and it gets plus 5. And auto rear once per turn, when this unit is chosen by your vanguard's effect, it gets plus 5 to end of turn. So if you combo this with Magnolia, which you have to, you can get 2 back row attacks in the turn. Call Care Bear, aka this thing, call this, use its skill, and give this thing plus 5 in back row attack. Swing with Magnolia, give this thing plus 5k in back row attack. Skill, it was chosen by Magnolia, gets plus another 5k, so it's at 20. Swing with this, skill, plus 15 to this, so this is now at 35, and you have a swinger for 15, so 13, 15, 35. All around, Damainaru is really nice, giving a constant power plus whenever you pick it from Magnolia, and giving you more rearguard back row attack. And if you kind of play it right, you can get a lot of back row attacks in one go, and make it very difficult, because first grade 3 turn, and it can be placed from anywhere, it can be placed from drop, so Wild Intelligence actually benefits this thing. So in all honesty, you can kind of go around with this deck, and it works out really well, and I love it so much with Damainaru in it, because you know, if you play it right and you call 2 of them at the same time, along with Magnolia, you got 3 back row attacks, and everything becomes a lot harder for your opponent. All around, 4 copies of Damainaru because he's a really nice grade 2. 3 copies of Sylvan Horned Beast Lattice, just like Charis, 1 in the ride deck, 2 in the main deck, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with intercept, auto when it's rode upon by Sylvan Horned Beast Magnolia, Soul Blast 1, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a unit card, call it to rear, and if it's not, put it to hand. So I like this more than I like Charis, to some extent. Charis, even though yes he gets you a soul in this deck, does lose out soul very quickly if you start spamming Croucotte like there's no tomorrow. I hate Charis because every time, the few times that I don't see triggers from him, and weirdly enough, it's always these 2 that I see from him. It's never anything else. I mean, well, it's rarely anything else. But the few times that I don't see triggers from him are the times that I see, like, things like Magnolia and the other grade 3 that I run, and Wild Intelligence, which sucks because those are cards I want in my hand, and they go to soul. But Lattice gets some to the hand, which is really nice, because Lattice pretty much says it's a unit card, which for some reason is always Magnolia. I never understand why, but it just likes making me lose a Persona Rider, which is fine, I guess. So you get out a rear guard for an attack, or you get a card to hand, which is all around really nice. Unfortunately, you're forced to call it, so you can't just pick not to call the Magnolia. But either way, nice grade 2 ability to ride, and auto back or rear. When it attacks Soul Blast 1, it gets plus 10 for the battle. I have not used that ability since 2 has dropped, because every time I've had the choice to, it's between this and Damainaru, and I picked Damainaru over because Damainaru is so much better. But, you know, just like Charis, you need a backup option, because maybe Gyunosla isn't in your hand. This is your next best target for swinging with big numbers. Swing, Soul Blast, plus 10, it's a 20. If it's attacking from back row, probably got plus 5 from either Damainaru or Magnolia. So 25k swing, which is all around really nice to have as a backup grade 2. And if you do combine it with Gyunosla, it's like 35 plus another 5, so 40. all around, Lattice is a nice grade 2 to have, and I like it, so 1 in the right deck, 2 in the main deck. 3 copies of my favorite animal of all time because I love elephants. Sylvan Horned Beast Elrante, 13k base, grade 3 twin jet persona ride. Auto rear, when this unit attacks, if you have 2 or more units in the front of this unit, it gets +5 to battle, and if there are 3 or more, soul charge 1. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but how I'm pretty sure it works is if there are 2 units in the front row, it gets +5, but it does not count itself, so you have to have like Magnolia and something else, and this will not count for it, but it can still be in the front row for this to go off. And if it has 3 or more, which means this has to be in the back row for it, you soul charge 1. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So either way, 18k swing is really nice, followed by that soul charge ability to kind of refill your soul for things like Lattice, Damainaru, and Croucotte. So all around, he's a really nice card. If you choose not to call him a rear guard, he's perfect PG fodder and discard fodder for your ride line. Like, this deck is very flexible because you always got like ride line fodder for things like this boy and discard fodder, including this guy. So all around, you have like plenty of options for the deck, and that's why I love it so much. It's very free feeling. You kind of do whatever you want and you won't really feel any repercussions from it, and you can still hit for really big numbers really quickly, making it hard for your opponent to live. And that's why I kind of don't hate Bushy for dropping the shield value, because while granted, yes, it's for grade 3s and grade 2s, that didn't really change. Grade 1s did change. I sometimes just discard grade 1s, and in a normal case, sometimes I want to discard those grade 1s because of that 10k shield. I would probably discard something else. So I like how they dropped it to 5k shield because it made it easier for me to make decisions. So all around, that's just a random rant, but still, 3 copies of Elrante because, you know, he gets you that soul, he gets you that 5k, and if you need to rely on him, you can. 3 of. And then 4 of our last card, Sylvan Horned Beast King, Magnolia, grade 3, twin drag, persona ride, 13k base, auto van when it attacked, at the end of the battle it attacked, counterblast 1, and choose one of your rear guards until end of turn. It can attack from back row and it gets +5, and if you're persona road, you choose 3 rear guards instead of 1. So you can pick any rear guard, doesn't matter if it's on the back row or front row. It gets +5, it can attack from back row if it is in the back row, which is really nice. So I sometimes do use that ability on the front row, but those are on rare occasions, but like the back row wouldn't hit anyways, because mainly I might not have a Damainaru in the back row, and the only time I do use that is if I don't have a Damainaru or Gyunosla in the back row and they pull a trigger. But otherwise, Magnolia, I typically give it to the back row, combining it with Damainaru and Gyunosla, knowing how I normally use it nowadays. You get 2 extra attacks because one of them was probably Damainaru, and Gyunosla, you get power, you get more attacks, you make it harder for them to guard, and then next turn you kind of go for game with the Persona Raid. The thing about this is, we don't have a Persona Raid searcher, but I have hope for them because we got one for Hex Orb, like specifically, counterblast 1, discard 1, go search your deck for a Hex Orb and add it to hand. So, Magnolia, hopefully we get one for them, and that'll make my life so much easier, or like something like Tentra's Dead at least, in the sense that, you know, you're getting some form of a Persona Raid searcher. But either way, Magnolia is a really nice grade 3 to have, and I love it. 4 of. And that was the deck. So this deck all around is just really fun, you know, you get a lot of attacks, you get decent power out of it, you kind of just constantly push. A lot of people didn't like Magnolia in set 1, and I can understand why I felt very uncomfortable in set 1 too, but in set 2, they like went for it. Like, they get power, not a lot of power like Bastion, things like Bastion, Brute, well, Bruce is more or less on even terms with them, but Bastion and Orfist obviously blow them out of the water, Nirvana kind of blows them out of the water, but Magnolia all around gets decent numbers, can hit really quickly, and if you know what you're doing, can push your opponent into a checkmate position on first grade 3 turn. And if you're going first, that's really big, especially against decks like Bruce, because they would die really quickly to that. So all around, this deck's really fun. If you want a fun deck to play that isn't that expensive, go with Magnolia. I like it, it's interesting, and, you know, they have a bunch of cute animals, and they have this boy, who I love with my living soul because he's an elephant. So I hope you guys enjoy. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.